I must say that I greatly love reading your comments, and I've got one here, Conundrum, 1977. It is nuts that he, that's Rishi, has chosen to die in a ditch over such a crazy policy. Of course, it's absolute nuts. This isn't something to pin your premiership on, because it's fundamentally based on a misreading of law and a misreading of our responsibilities. The refugee or migrant explosion that we are witnessing, that, for example, caused such problems to Germany and to Merkel, this is an international phenomenon, and it should be dealt with on a global, on an international stage. We have an ethical and legal responsibility. It's an ethical and legal responsibility for all civilized countries to take in refugees when they come to us. And the rules that bind us, that we're signed up to, make it very clear that there isn't such a thing as a legal or illegal migrant when they ask for asylum. Everybody, no matter how they've come to this country, is entitled to consideration. And it's only after that consideration is finished and somebody is rejected as an asylum seeker that they would then conceivably be branded an illegal migrant. We're bound by the 1951 Convention, by other international agreements about migration, and by case law. And it's case law and the interpretations that judges have imposed on our system. For example, allowing 70 days grace for somebody to journey through Europe, even during the time of the Schengen agreement and the Dublin III agreement, to allow 70 days grace, and to pass through a series of other safe countries. It's a generous interpretation, but it's part of our case law, and it's part of our history of the interpretation of these international treaties and our own national laws. It's a generous interpretation about what is the first safe country. It's an interpretation that favors language, culture, and links to a given destination. But that is simply a generous interpretation, a generous convention. And it could be reined in. If there was anything to start reining in, it would be that. Rather than to compromise our international obligations, which should only change with an international convention and by a global international agreement. And that might be to further define reasons for claiming asylum, the idea of safe and legal routes, and so on, which may be a wise thing. But a country would be under an obligation then to ensure that there are safe and legal routes and that there are means to starting an asylum application before getting to that country. And that would immediately, in one fell swoop, get rid of the smuggling trade across the Mediterranean and across the Channel, in one fell swoop. But it would involve spending money on setting up consulates in North Africa and so on. And maybe that's something that we should do. Those countries where those consulates were sited probably wouldn't like the cluster of refugees who would assemble around the consulates. Whose responsibility would they become? In the same way as France doesn't like the communities that cluster around the Channel ports and the Channel crossing points. But, that is the problem that needs to be addressed. It's those problems, those practical issues that need to be addressed and could be addressed on an international scale, rather than on a Suella Braverman, Priti Patel fit of pique. So thank you for the comments. Keep them coming. And I'd be well, of course, we'll be watching tomorrow to see, we'll all be watching tomorrow to see which way Rishi swings, if there's any room for swinging, or if anybody notices what he does. It'll be very interesting. My own reading of his character is that he will duck and try to do and say nothing and see what happens, by which point I'm afraid it will be too late. The die is cast.